Lincoln Home National Historic Site and the Illinois State Historic Sites at Springfield, in cooperation with various youth mentoring organizations, have undertaken a project to explore the journey from slavery to freedom in Illinois. The project teamed historians and youth mentors to teach history and inspire youth through the places that are touchstones of the stories of victory through adversity. The result is the Illinois Freedom Project, a youth-focused multimedia endeavor that includes a website, videos, printed materials, curriculum, and a travel exhibit. Together, these resources contain the stories of freedom through the lens of people, places, and events covering over 200 years of Illinois history. The Illinois Freedom Project has put together our recommendation of suggested field trips we call Illinois Freedom Journeys. These include historic sites and museums throughout Illinois. The journeys cover familiar tourist stops along with those off the beaten path. You may be surprised at conversations they will spark about the places, the people, and what the past can teach us about the struggles of youth today. It is the hope of the project partners that youth organizations all throughout Illinois and beyond will look to the Illinois Freedom Project and undertake their own enlightening freedom journeys. The resource materials are available, the stories are compelling, the places are inspiring, and Illinois youth are waiting.
I want to be like one of those legends. I can be in a history book.
In the past, the African American story was either purposely left out of history or ignored as unimportant. So having a heritage you can look back on, I think, is important for young people moving forward. That they have a deep roots here, and their ancestors played an important role and an empowering role, not a subservient role all the time. And it was while again there were some tough stories, tough things they had to hear, there were always part of that stories of how their ancestors overcame these challenges, persevered, pushed through. Our program is based here in Springfield, Illinois, which is the center of Lincoln, and which was one of the inspiring points of this trip was to broaden the history here in this area. That Lincoln certainly was an important player historically, but there were plenty of other people who were active change agents, I guess, from the past. But the history of Illinois is, of course, everywhere. So whether youth mentoring organization in Chicago or Rockford or Carbondale would be interested in doing this, there are stories in their areas as well. In fact, the Illinois Freedom Project includes stories from all corners of the state, many more places than what we're able to visit on these trips. And there are many more places even than what is included on the Illinois Freedom Project website. So there's no shortage of these stories in every community in Illinois. If you dig a little bit, I think they're there.
It's important to talk about those tough stories and talk about the history of slavery and all of the things that took place so that our youth can have a sense of pride that their people have survived and endured such hardships, and that the reason that they're able to take advantage of certain opportunities now is because of the work and the courageous efforts that people took before them to get us to this point. So I think it's important for youth as they navigate through life trying to face adversity to not give up, because you've got stories right in front of you of people who look just like you who had way less than you did, and they were able to be successful. So I think it gives youth a sense of hope, which I feel a lot of our youth at times don't have. It's great examples of, taking that leap of faith, stepping out, and really taking chances and working hard to provide your children with more than what you had. And so I think that it also helps youth understand they've been given a really great gift and they should make the most of their life, because there's a lot of people that came before them that never had those opportunities. The Illinois Freedom Project is a dynamic program, and I think that it is very important for other youth service organizations in the area all over the United States to take part in an opportunity to expose their youth to historical sites and understanding their culture and their background and kind of the history of the United States. Because for many of our youth, some of them never make it out of town. Some of them never make it out of their neighborhood. Some of them never get an opportunity to know that there's life beyond where they live, or there's something to look forward to. Again, I feel that a constant theme that comes about in youth service is the recognition that a lot of our youth lack hope. And some of that just has to do with their circumstances and not realizing that their situations are temporary and they can be extraordinary if they're given the opportunity to see something different. So giving youth an opportunity to kind of interact with one another and people that they don't know helps socialization. So, I mean, there's just so many components to this, to the Illinois Freedom Project. It's not just historical trips, it's not just college trips, it's not, just historical information, it's socialization, and it's conversations and getting from behind the phones and really talking, and also showing them how to appropriately use their technology to record, the sites that they're visiting and take pictures and maybe, jot some notes down. So I just think it's a very holistic approach that a lot of organizations are kind of missing. We get these curriculums and they want us to implement things, but I just think it provided a great opportunity to not only have some brain time and learning some things, but then, okay, so here's the fruits of your labor from coming to these sessions and planning. Now we're gonna go on these sites and we're gonna go see the things that we've talked about and just having conversation. It's simple things like that that are missing.
I look at the world different than I did before, because what we did back then, it was crazy how they treated us and crazy how we did things, and it was just I look at the world differently now. So that really helped me.
I learned that most African Americans don't get their stories out there, so you go to different places to learn about what most people did and how most people helped and what most other people that weren't African American did to help African Americans escape slavery.
I really found it both educational, informational for me, and it's spiritual in a sense. There were a lot of moments there that really got me to see something about myself and about our history here in Illinois that I was not aware of. And I think what was really important about this trip was the fact that these students who sit in the classroom and listen to history from a textbook actually went and experienced history that wasn't in that textbook. And I think that was one of those moments where they began to question and to challenge, what the truth was, the real truth. For our communities, for our kids, as they grow and become our future leaders, I think it's really important to know the value of our past. I think that it's essential and I think it's a responsibility that we have to pass along information to that next generation, to give them a clear picture of where we are and hopefully where we need to be. But I don't think it was until Miller's Grove where we walked in this area, this space. There was the bricks had fallen, but they were laying down on the ground, and it was clear that was a chimney at one time. Kids could actually begin to imagine and visualize this, to look at the water at the cistern and realize that something happened here, and to know that they were people of color that thrived in this location at that point in time in life where you looked across the Ohio River and that was Kentucky and that was a slave state, but right here on the other bank, there was this thriving community of African Americans and whites living and existing together. You know, pretty powerful.
I changed about a little things that they told me about, like maybe sticking up for people and having your own voice, because before I stick up for myself, but maybe not as much as I should. But now after this, it kind of like told me that you have your own voice and no one can really stop you from doing anything. This is a great experience to learn a lot new things about the American history that you may not have learned in your average history class, because I learned a lot about slavery that I knew a little bit about slavery, but this experience kind of took me back more in the history, and I learned a lot of new things that I never would have thought or knew about the state of Illinois and just our African American history. When they told us about speaking up and finding your voice, I think that'll always be with me, because I can always remember I have my own voice and won't have to worry about anyone getting me down or worry about what anybody says, because I can just have my own voice and speak up about whatever I feel the problem is.
For me, highlights would have been seeing the students learn things that they had never learned before, and even learning things myself that I didn't know about, the history with the slavery in Illinois, and just, becoming aware and seeing kids get excited about, things that had happened in the past that they had never been told about. Just that genuine, organic, thrill that they got, oh my gosh, I can't believe that, things like that. It was just really, really eye-opening to know all that we didn't know, all that had been hidden, or that is hidden. Uncovering it all was really exciting and eye-opening. How do they know how far they progressed if they don't even know what happened, where they came from?
I didn't know anything about the Pullman Porters, and now I'm doing a history fair project on it, and I'm surprised that my mom didn't know about it or anybody else. So it shocked me. I didn't know that they actually the Pullman Porters have to work at that such extent, always smiling and stuff like that to exact extent, and then having to go under those working conditions. At school, they was like, no, slavery wasn't in Illinois. So I'm like, yeah, it actually was, and that's what people hide, and they don't know about it. And that really shocked me, because I'm like, why would they hide such a thing?
I think it's important for young people to visit these places as well as learn about these stories. One, so that they can, understand what has transpired before them, as well as they can get a bigger picture, if you will, of what it is that they need to contribute. Oftentimes, youth don't feel that they have a voice. There's an old adage that, that youth were supposed to be seen and not heard. And I think by making these trips, making these connections with them, they have an opportunity to not only be seen, but they can be heard. They can share their opinion, as well as they can extract some of the information to tie it into where they're going in life, whether they, want to study a particular area in post-secondary education, or whether they're dealing with issues within their own communities, if you will, family-related issues, various things of that nature. And so I think we're on to something with this framework that's been put in place from sponsors, from youth organizations, from even the media that has been able to wrap and capture to memorialize these various segments. And so I think we're on to something great. But long term, you've inspired, individuals that who knows where they'll go in life. They can be great historians, or they can be, great professions in whatever, trade or whatever they so decide. But more importantly, they've learned some rich history, that is connected to them indirectly, and in some cases maybe direct, depending on them finding their voice.
During the trip, I became more observant and stuff, and now I notice more of the small things that can make the big things more understandable. To be more open to ideas and to be more intrigued about what you hear, and not just go based upon what you've already know, but learn more about it, and then you'll really get the perspective you want.
As I was always taught, in order to know where you're going, You have to know what you came from. And so to hear all these stories, it just resonated with me that here I am as African American, and people have these different stigmas on us. Taught me more, like we are a powerful people, and that no matter our circumstances, no matter where we came from, we can survive and we can make it. And I think that's very, very important, especially for the young people that were on our trip with us. But to see that, I saw the growth in them. I saw that they were like, wow, like these people who looked like me actually did this. And so for me, that was very, very powerful, because they could see that no matter what you see on TV, no matter what people have told you about your race, or even now with all that's going on in the world, that we are definitely a powerful people, and that we just have to, have a mind to do it. So knowing that these people actually were before us and did this, and actually learning about them, and not just about the same people who we hear about in our history books, but other people who's also paved the way, it was tremendous. It's an asset. This project was meant to bring a connection between a community problem that we see and how people have before us come together, how it relates to that, how does it correlate? So there were a range of different projects or different issues that the kids chose. We had them act it out, like based on what you learned, how does that correlate to what your community problem is? How does that relate to what you can do to use your voice? I believe it was the DuSable Museum is where it actually resonated with me that this was like a great purpose, because those youth, as they were going around the museum, they were stopping. And they were saying, Miss Erica, did you know this? And like one of them that really stood out, which I thought that every child should know about, but I remember one young man, he was there, he just stopped. I might be teary-eyed, but he just stopped. And when he looked at it, he was like, but why? Miss Erica, why would they do that to him? And I was like, well, what are you talking about? And he was like, this story. So I went to go look at it, and it was Emmett Till. And he just stood there. He was like, Miss Erica, like, I don't understand. And so I told him the story, I said, but he was your age. He was your age. And he's from Chicago, and he took a trip to Mississippi. And all he did was, it was assumed that he whistled at a white woman. And back then, you couldn't make contact with them. You couldn't do that. And I said, but he did that, and as a result, this is what happened. They lynched him. And I just think that did something to him, because he was one of those, he was actually made to be there. It wasn't a want. He was actually made to come. And so for the first couple of weeks, he was like, okay, I'm just here. Okay, whatever. But to see this young Emmett Till in a casket with his face destroyed and all that had happened to him, it really resonated with him. For me, I saw my youth come in as nonchalant to, oh my gosh, I never knew. And a lot of times we take this for granted. We take our students knowing about history for granted. And while they may know about history, do they know about history? Because all history books to me are the same in school. You learn about MLK, Rosa Parks, Thurgood Marshall, Malcolm X. And that's about it. And this program takes you further. You learn about those unsung heroes, those trailblazers who you would probably never hear about if it wasn't for this program. And for me, even at 31 years of age, it helped me grow. It helped me to learn more. Because like them, I just knew about MLK, Rosa Parks, Thurgood Marshall, and Malcolm X, and nothing else. Now, I knew that they didn't get there by themselves alone, but these people who we learned about through this program actually went through the trenches. They actually got their hands dirty. They actually have to sacrifice.
It was fun because you don't really learn about this in school, because they sort of, have like a strict way going to it. Like for slavery, they say slavery, and that was it. So we sort of learn like the background information that we never get in school. And I learned that,
You know, you have to ask questions or you're never gonna get the real answer. It takes a lot of courage to be able to do what they did and to be able to go through it and not just give up, because a lot of people would. And you know, you never get a lot of things done if you don't have courage to do it. To not be afraid to speak out, because we were told we always have to be able to ask questions or you never really know the real information. So I really told myself that, you know, if I really want to know what I need to know, I have to ask the questions, even if, you know, it's already been said, just to like really have it in my mind and like know it.
Fellow citizens, I declare unto you, view it as you may, we are American citizens by the principles of the Declaration of Independence. We are American citizens within the meaning of the United States Constitution. We are American citizens by the facts of history and the admissions of American statesmen. We are American citizens by the hardship and trials endured, by the courage and fidelity displayed by our ancestors in defending the liberties and in achieving the independence of our land. We are American citizens. John Jones, African-American businessman and abolitionist, Chicago, Illinois, 1864.